entering the small town of Tampico, Illinois, birthplace of our nation's 40th president. And here in the town of Tampico is Reagan Park. And inside Reagan Park is a statue of a young Ronald Reagan on top of an old Civil War cannon. Greetings, my friends, and welcome back to Mike Allen from Chicagoland. Currently broadcasting, as I mentioned before, from the town of Tampico, Illinois. And in this video, I'm going to do some exploring of Ronald Reagan's early years before he became an actor, and then the governor of California, and eventually our 39th president. So hope you come and join me, and let's get started. So unfortunately, the birds haven't been very kind to the statue, but we'll try and work around it here as I explain a little bit about this statue. It was erected in 2013 as a moment in time to celebrate when Reagan was a child and he used to play on a Civil War cannon here in Tampico's town square. The townsfolk wanted to have it erected in 2011 to commemorate Reagan's 100th birthday, but fundraising efforts didn't allow for that to happen until 2013. So here it sits 10 years later in beautiful Reagan Park, commemorating his time as a child. And this sign right here at the front of Ronald Reagan Park just talks about his birth here in this town, just up the road at 111 South Main Street, and how he used to play on a Civil War cannon right here in this park, which I mentioned earlier, which is why that statue was erected. Talks a little bit about his life as an actor before he eventually became governor of California and then our president. I also have an artillery unit right here. Not really sure what this is. I couldn't find any sign or information on it. It's not all that dissimilar from the one we saw last week at the War Memorial Park over in Dixon. And just on the northern edge of the park here is a statue of a Union soldier. And this statue here is to commemorate what it took to keep the United States together during the Civil War. And here's the inscription on the back. It says, "This stone is a reminder of the cost and value of the Union of the States." Here in the middle of town is a mural of Ronald Reagan. It's him with his older brother and parents in 1914. It was Reagan during his sports broadcasting career. Him and his wife, Nancy Reagan, when he was president, along with an image of the White House. Now, before we go any further, I just wanted to repeat something I said during my video where I visited the George W. Bush Presidential Museum. I'm not talking politics on this channel, nor am I going to be getting into any discussions about certain political policies of Ronald Reagan. There's certainly a lot of other channels that do those sorts of things, and you're welcome to go check those out if you'd like. Right next to this old feed store is a picture of the gentleman who founded Tampico, J.W. Glassburn. And around over on this side here is a portrait of Reagan. Also, here's a picture of Admiral Joseph Mason Reeves, Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Fleet, 1934. Reagan was born on the second floor of that red brick building right above First National Bank. Hopefully it's open and we can head inside. Right here near the entrance is a placard of Ronald Reagan, along with the fact that this spot is on the National Register of Historic Places. He was election day, so November 3rd, 1980, huh?
Mm-hmm.
That rainbow came about, and then he was elected president the very next day.
Mm-hmm.
No kidding.
And we have a lot of pictures in here of him with his hand on his chin, as you know, even the forever stamp shows him with his hand on his chin.
Mm-hmm.
So the boy standing on the cannon statue has his hand on his chin. This building was a grocery store, and the building next door was a bakery. Then the bakery moved out and the bank moved in.
Okay.
The bank has been completely restored with all the original fixtures.
Mm-hmm.
And the upstairs apartment is restored. None of the things are the Reagans up there, but things are very typical of what it would look like when the Reagan family was living up there.
Okay. So this is where his dad worked, and
yes,
this
Jack.
is where the mural across the street was
Yes.
that we just saw. Okay.
Correct.
Very nice.
But it was a general store, sold most of anything, mostly dry goods, but groceries, and his dad was specially trained in fitting shoes.
Okay.
So they had shoes and sewing materials, all kinds of things there.
This church still standing here?
St. Mary's Church is where Jack Reagan always attended. Jack was Irish Catholic. And Neil, the older son, was baptized Catholic.
Okay. So Reagan wasn't Catholic, though, I
Correct.
remember, because Biden is the first Catholic president since Kennedy.
Yeah. Yes. It was kind of a mix-up. Nell was not aware that the tradition was that the children were to be raised Catholic. And so Neil, the priest baptized Neil, but when Ronald came along, she was aware at that time, and she said, no, he's going to be raised with me.
Gotcha.
So the St. Mary's Church is still active here in town. A lot of
Political
buttons,
buttons.
all kinds of buttons.
Yeah, I noticed a few of these
They've
here.
been donated.
So when I was a kid, I remember I was 4 years old, and Reagan was campaigning in Iowa, and my mom took me to a rally at the airport where he spoke
fun.
for his re-election campaign. Yeah,
Fun.
I remember the crowd chanting 4 more years.
The lady with the dark dress is his mother. The lady with the light dress is Mrs. Walgreen, and this was taken at the Walgreen estate in Dixon.
Okay.
So the pharmacy, Walgreen Pharmacy, their home was in Dixon.
Okay. Well, I recognize this picture here because of the statue in Dixon.
And you got to see the statue.
I was there.
Great.
I was there last week. I saw this statue and how it was taken in 1950 when he was in town for a parade back when he was an actor.
He actually learned to ride horseback when he was here.
Okay.
He had friends that had horses, and his love of horses began here.
Oh, very nice.
But this is his class picture, and that's him back there with his hand on his chin. They came downtown and had lunch, and then after lunch they came down here for a tour.
Okay.
And so there's various pictures of the tour. But the volunteers knew that he would show up, so they had this rug prepared for him. Ronald Reagan stepped here.
No kidding.
And that picture is him stepping
On his rug there. So this was 1992 after he had finished up his presidency, and him and Nancy came back to town to see where he was from. So that's Ronald Reagan there with his hand on his chin in the stockyards of Tampico. I think I've been pronouncing the town wrong. It's Tampico?
Correct.
Okay.
In 1981, we took 3 busloads of local people out for the inauguration. And we had a great big Tampico sign as we stood on the bleachers to watch the parade. And our photographer caught him just as he was pointing over towards our group.
Kidding. So we're standing in the grocery store right now.
Correct.
Okay, so this is what it looked like here back when it was a grocery store, and then this gentleman here is the one who owned the grocery store.
1930s.
So this was, you said this was the bakery at one time?
Yes.
And then it became the bank 1908 until about the 1930s?
It started across the street on the corner, and it moved in here in 1918.
1918, okay, gotcha. And it's
So
been restored.
then, when it closed, this was the city hall.
Okay.
So they remodeled, and they moved all the fixtures into the basement.
Okay.
When our new owner purchased this, they discovered the fixtures, they found the floor plans, so this is back as it was when it was a working bank.
Gotcha, okay. Wow.
October, the mayor of Grantham, England was here,
Okay.
and that is the town where Margaret Thatcher was born. And they have a Margaret Thatcher museum. So we had a special ceremony joining the 2 museums and the 2 towns.
Okay. And I saw that.
See the
I saw Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan picture together in the right below the National Registry historic marker there in the building.
Yeah, early days that evidently was destroyed.
Okay.
And that's not him, but he did that.
Okay. Yeah. So that's not Reagan, but that's what the cannon looked like
yeah.
back when it was here in town.
And he used to play King of the Hill and things like that.
I happened to notice the picture of the rainbow here. And a picture picture frame. Is this a more recent picture here, this one?
Yes, and this was right after they put the new street lights out.
Oh, okay.
And the rainbow has faded now, but there is a rainbow right there.
Okay.
As well. This is a weekly report of all the depositors.
Wow.
Here, it starts on December 22nd, 1919. Mrs. J.E. Reagan has $95 on deposit. And then on December 24th, she withdrew $2. So we try to figure out what all she would have been able to purchase.
So this is a picture of Ronald Reagan in the state of Illinois, which was created by a Russian artist here who was growing up during the Cold War, height of the Cold War, and came and presented this to the town.
Now, after the bank had closed, after the City Hall had moved out, they were working upstairs to restore the apartment, but some kids got in here and they knocked the combination off. Can't get in without a combination, so the locksmith had to drill through here and get into it. But, here is the inside of the safe. The safe came by rail from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Wow.
And then, as I said, the bank opened across the street in 1908. They moved here in 1918. This has been sitting here since 1918 for over 100 years.
Wow.
The safe down below, the bank used that. You had to run the combination, and then there's this wheel you would put on the shaft, and then there's just a small area with a shelf in it that the bank had for their private business. And then back here we have safe deposit boxes. And when the banks closed, some people forgot that they ever put anything in a box. So here we still have some items, including this 90-cent check that's over 100 years old.
Wow. Wow.
So we can make up all kinds of stories about what that was all about.
What that was all about, yep.
And when a person would write a check, it would get to the bank and be recorded, and then it would be canceled on that day.
Okay.
And at the end of the month, canceled checks would go home with your statement. So today's the 12th of May, and this is a souvenir you get to have.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that. So these were found in the basement?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, his parents' wedding picture. They were married in the Catholic parsonage over in Fulton.
So that's his mom right there?
The top
No.
left.
Okay, and then this is her family. Okay.
Swimsuit he had, and of course, you know, he learned to swim in the canal here, but then when he got to Dixon, he was a lifeguard and saved 77 lives.
Wow.
So here's a picture of him as a lifeguard, and this lady actually was saved by him because the current was very strong there.
So this is a picture of Reagan with Mikhail Gorbachev. And this was during his presidency?
Yes,
Okay.
and it was taken out at the ranch.
Okay. Here he is. So on the second floor of this building then is where Ronald Reagan was born, and a lot of this is very much restored to the time of when he was born in 1911. So we're gonna check this out. It's got that old time feeling to it with the creaky floors and period furniture.
They had the telephone, and the skylight was in place.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
But they didn't have running water, so they had to run outside, out back, for the outhouse and for the pump. This has 3 bedrooms, and they all have closets, which was quite unusual in the early days. It rented for $10 a month, and Jack Reagan was making $1 a day as a clerk across the street. He had very poor eyesight. Was among the first people to start using contact lenses.
So this is from the parade that the
Yeah.
statue in Dixon
Correct.
commemorates here. Okay.
And here's his mother, his brother, and himself. And here he's getting ready to go swimming. And that's him. his brother, his dad, and his mother.
Okay.
I like to point this picture out because he was just a little over 3 years old, but he's got his American flag, showing an early sign of his patriotism.
Of his patriotism towards the country.
Yeah. This is another picture of the cannon, and that's his mother and a couple of her sisters.
It's a shame the cannon didn't survive. That would have been such a big piece of history.
They were collecting a lot of metal. And here's Nell, his mother and his dad, her sisters and brother. But here we are with a hand on the chin bit. There's his brother, and those two are cousins. And that's one of the times he and his mother were back. And here's Jane Wyman.
His first wife.
Of course, he and Jane were in 6 movies together. He and Nancy were just in 1 movie together.
I noticed this old school turnstile here. Is this something that...
Victrola. They could have been listening to 2 records.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, the bedroom where both boys were born. He was born about 6 o'clock in the morning on February 6, 1911.
Okay.
We had a huge snowstorm the night before. The trains couldn't run because the drifts were so high. But Dr. Terry and a midwife were able to make it because Dr. Terry's office was on the corner here on Main Street, and the family lived upstairs. So he just came down the sidewalk to attend. But it was a very difficult birth. He weighed over 10 pounds.
Wow.
When his dad saw him, he said he makes a heck of a lot of noise for a fat little Dutchman. So even though they were not of Dutch heritage, he loved to be called Dutch.
He loved to be called Dutch, but
this was much more masculine.
So this is where it was, huh? This room right here was where Ronald Reagan was born. I was just commenting about that earlier, about the creaking of the floor. So this is all original wood from when Reagan was here then.
And here in the dining room, as they were restoring this, they went down 5 layers of wallpaper.
Wow.
Found this pattern and had it duplicated because they're quite sure that this pattern was on the wall when the family lived here, because they were the first people to occupy the apartment after the apartment was put together.
Okay. When you say party line telephone, can you describe what that means?
There could have been 5 or 6 families all in the neighborhood. They would all have the same line coming in. And so they had to share that. And if a person wanted to talk, or if they were getting a call, receiving a call, there was a special code. They might have 2 rings, or a long ring and a short ring. Different households had different codes.
Okay, because I remember an episode of the Andy Griffith Show when they talk about the party line telephone and how you know the couple sisters are talking and the whole town couldn't use the phone on a certain weekend because the sisters were reconnecting. Okay, so this was where the reservoir was right here, where they would have heated their water. So that part's missing, but the rest of the stove is here.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was a warming stone. They could warm their beds with it or take it on their buggy rides.
Okay.
It's a little warmer. There's irons. As one cooled down, they could just rotate them. Okay. They used to keep matches in these, hanging along the wall.
So this is a rolling pin from the Pitney store right across the street where the mural is today. So this is the dry sink, and because they didn't have running water, this is what they would use to basically, when you'd say carry the water in, carry the water out, and then so they did the dishes and things to that nature. Okay.
This is a very unique little gadget. I try to see if people can guess what it might be. It doesn't have anything to do with a sink, but it's a double cherry pitter. So you would,
sure what that is.
You would drop your cherries.
Okay.
There. It's knocking the cherry pits out. And then as it comes back, the cherries are still here, but then they get caught and they fall off and they run down this into a little bowl.
No kidding.
I think it's really unique.
That is unique. Yeah, never heard of such a thing.
So the iceman would come around and bring the ice, however much ice they order in, and then see in the back there's a a drain hole. So as it melted, it would go through that drain hole into a pan underneath.
Okay.
The pan had to be kept dry, kept emptied, so it didn't run all over. And then this is where they would keep the things cool.
Keep everything cool. Okay.
And whatever number was on top was how much ice they were ordering.
Okay.
So they put it over here. And as the Iceman came down the alley, he just looked to see what the number was. Okay. And that's what he would bring
That's what
up.
he would bring up for whatever ice they needed for the icebox. Okay.
And of course, these are the ice tongs.
Yep, the ice tongs.
It looks like the same buggy is in the picture. And that was taken in the funeral home shop behind the funeral home.
Okay. There's the buggy right here. This was the apartment in the other section here of the building, and their neighbors used to hand Ronald Reagan back and forth on this window. And you said when he came in 1992 to visit, he would go through. He got to climb through the window again as an adult, huh? So thank you for joining me here in Tampico, Illinois, visiting Ronald Reagan's birthplace. So normally when I do these types of videos, I like to kind of just go it alone. I like to do things at my own pace, check things out on my own pace, and just see things without a tour guide. But this time around, I think it was very helpful having our tour guide, Joan, and I just want to give a special thank you to her for giving us a lot of insight that I normally wouldn't be able to find out had I not had a tour guide with me. So thank you very much for taking the time to take us through this. Really, really appreciate it. So anyways, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like and subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate it. There's other ways you can help me out in growing the channel. I'll put links down in the description below. As a reminder, I started a Mike Allen from Chicagoland Facebook page. That link is also in the description. So if you wouldn't mind visiting that page and hitting the like button, I would really appreciate that. Helps to grow this community and this channel. Anyways, this is Mike Allen from Chicagoland, signing off from Tampico, Illinois. I'll be back next week with another video, but until then, don't you go changing. And one other thing I wanted to point out right here where Casey's General Store is, that picture that we saw earlier of Ronald Reagan in front of the stockyards with his hand on his chin, that was right here on this spot.